The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the streetlights, a mirror to my racing heart as I fumbled with my apartment keys. I'd spent 12 hours debugging code at my tech job, and all I wanted was to collapse onto my couch with a beer. But tonight, I was about to unravel my life without even knowing it. I'm Ethan Caldwell, a 27-year-old software engineer who thrives on logic and algorithms. My world is one of clean lines and predictable outcomes until Julian Torres moved into my spare room 6 months ago. Julian, with his paint-splattered jeans and crooked grin, is chaos in human form. An artist who sees beauty in the mess. He's the opposite of my structured life. And somehow, he's become my closest friend. My sister, Mia, was visiting tonight, and I'd hatched a plan to set her up with him. It was perfect. Mia's warmth would balance Julian's wild energy. Or so I thought. The apartment smelled of fresh coffee and Julian's cedarwood cologne when I walked in. Mia was sprawled on the couch, her auburn hair spilling over a cushion, laughing at something Julian said. He was perched on the armrest, sketching in his notebook, his dark eyes flickering with mischief. "Ethan, you're late," Mia teased, tossing a pillow at me. "Julian's been telling me about his latest mural. You didn't warn me your roommate's a genius." "Genius is a stretch," I said, kicking off my shoes. "He just slaps paint on walls and calls it art." Julian smirked, unfazed, and my chest did that weird flip it always did when he looked at me like that. I ignored it, as usual, chalking it up to too much caffeine. "Dinner's almost ready," Julian called from the kitchen, where he was tossing a salad with the same flair he used to wield a paintbrush. Mia followed him, chattering about her new job as a nurse. I watched them, pleased with my matchmaking idea. Mia was single, Julian was single, and they both loved adventure. It was a no-brainer. Over dinner, the conversation flowed effortlessly. Mia's stories about hospital chaos had Julian leaning in, his laughter filling the room. I caught myself staring at him, his sharp jawline, the way his hands moved when he talked. I shook it off, focusing on my pasta. This was about Mia, not me. "So, Julian," I said, nudging the conversation along, "Mia's free this weekend. You two should hit up Pike Place Market. She loves the food stalls." Mia raised an eyebrow, catching my intent, but played along with a grin. Julian, though, paused, his fork hovering midair. "Pike Place. Huh," he said, his tone unreadable. "Sounds fun, but I've got a gallery thing Saturday." His eyes flicked to me, lingering a beat too long. My stomach twisted, and I told myself it was just the wine. After dinner, Mia pulled me aside while Julian cleared the plates. "Ethan, are you seriously trying to set me up?" she whispered, her green eyes sparkling with amusement. "He's cute, but I'm not sure he's into me." "What? Of course he is," I said, though my confidence wavered. "You're perfect for each other." Mia just patted my arm, like she knew something I didn't, and headed to the balcony for some air. I joined Julian in the kitchen, where he was scrubbing a pan with unnecessary focus. "So, what's with the gallery thing?" I asked, leaning against the counter. "You dodging Mia, or what?" He laughed, but it was tight, not his usual easy chuckle. "Nah, it's just a busy weekend." He dried his hands and turned to face me, his expression softer now. "You really want me to go out with your sister?" I shrugged, ignoring the odd pang in my chest. "Why not? She's great. You're great. It makes sense." Julian stepped closer, his voice low. "Does it?" His gaze locked onto mine, and for a moment, the kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. I didn't know what to say, so I muttered something about work and retreated to my room, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't name. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My plan was simple, logical, like a well-written script. So why did it feel like I was debugging a program with a bug I couldn't find? Julian's voice echoed in my head, "Does it?" And I wondered if I'd miscalculated something vital. The next morning, Seattle was draped in fog, the kind that makes everything feel like a dream. I was at my desk, coding, when Julian knocked and poked his head in. "Got a sec?" he asked, holding 2 mugs of coffee. I nodded, pushing my laptop aside. He sat on the edge of my bed, handing me a mug, his fingers brushing mine. That flip in my chest was back, stronger this time. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice careful. "About Mia. And you." He paused, like he was choosing his words with the precision of one of his sketches. "You're always trying to fix things, Ethan. Match people up. Make everything neat. But life's not a code base." I frowned, unsure where this was going. What's that supposed to mean? He set his mug down and leaned forward, his eyes searching mine. "It means maybe you're not seeing what's right in front of you." My breath caught, and before I could respond, he stood and left, leaving me with a half-empty coffee mug and a heart full of questions. Over the next few days, I threw myself into work, but Julian's words haunted me. Mia noticed my distraction when we grabbed lunch at a diner near her hospital. "You okay, Ethan?" she asked, stealing a fry from my plate. "You've been weird since dinner." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just work stuff." But it wasn't work. It was Julian's laugh, his sketches, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't noticing. I'd spent years building walls around my feelings, keeping things safe and predictable. Now, those walls were cracking, and I didn't know how to fix them. Friday night, Julian came home late, his jacket dusted with paint. "Gallery prep," he explained, collapsing onto the couch. I handed him a beer, and we sat in comfortable silence, the city humming outside. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "I'm not going out with Mia." I froze. "Why not?" He turned to me, his expression raw. "Because I don't want her, Ethan. I want you." The words hit like a shockwave, shattering my carefully coded world. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Julian stood, closing the distance between us, his eyes never leaving mine. "I've been trying to tell you for months," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But you're so damn stubborn." My heart raced, 1,000 emotions crashing together: fear, hope, something I couldn't name. I'd spent my life avoiding mess, but Julian was the kind of mess I didn't want to clean up. And as he stood there, waiting for me to say something, I realized I was done running from the bug in my code. Maybe it wasn't a bug at all. Maybe it was the feature I'd been missing all along. The silence in the room was deafening, the kind that makes your pulse feel like a drumbeat in your ears. Julian's confession hung in the air, raw and unfiltered, and I stood there, frozen, like a program stuck in an infinite loop. My mind screamed for logic, for a way to process the fact that my Ramatami best friend had just turned my world upside down. "Say something, Ethan," Julian urged, his voice softer now, almost pleading. His dark eyes searched mine, and I saw something I hadn't noticed before: vulnerability. The guy who painted murals with fearless strokes was scared, waiting for me to break the moment or build something new. I don't know what to say," I stammered, my hands shoving into my pockets to hide their trembling. "This is a lot." Understatement of the century. I'd spent years keeping my life compartmentalized: work, family, friends, all in neat boxes. Feelings like this didn't fit anywhere. They were messy, unpredictable, and terrifying. Julian stepped back, giving me space, but his gaze didn't waver. "I get it," he said, running a hand through his dark hair. "I didn't mean to drop this on you like a bomb, but I couldn't keep pretending. Man, not when it's been eating me up." I nodded, my throat tight. "How long?" I managed to ask. He gave a small, bittersweet smile. "Since the day I moved in. You were so serious, organizing my boxes like they were part of some grand algorithm. I thought, this guy's gonna drive me nuts. But then I saw how you care about Mia, about your code, about me." He paused, his voice dropping. "I didn't expect to fall for you, Ethan, but I did." My chest ached, a mix of panic and something warmer, something I wasn't ready to name. I turned away, staring out the window at Seattle's glittering lights. I need time, I said finally, to figure this out. Julian nodded, his expression unreadable. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door, pausing just long enough to add, but don't hide from this. Ethan, you're braver than that. The door clicked shut, and I was alone with my thoughts, which were anything but orderly. I sank onto the couch, replaying every moment with Julian the late-night talks. The way he'd tease me about my obsession with clean code. The times I'd catch him watching me with that unreadable look. Had I been blind? Or had I just been too scared to see? The next morning, I woke to the smell of pancakes and Mia's off-key humming. She was in the kitchen, flipping batter like she owned the place. Morning, Grumpy, she said, sliding a plate toward me. You look like you got hit by a truck. Thanks, I muttered, grabbing a fork. Long night. She raised an eyebrow, her nurse's intuition kicking in. Want to talk about it? I hesitated. Mia was my confidant, the one person who could read me like an open book. But this was uncharted territory. Julian said something last night. I started, my voice low. About feelings. For me. Mia's eyes widened, but she didn't look surprised. And I don't know what to do with that, I admitted, poking at my pancake. I was trying to set him up with you. Mia, this wasn't part of the plan. She laughed, a warm, knowing sound. Ethan, you can't plan everything. Life's not one of your algorithms. And for the record, I knew Julian wasn't into me. He's been mooning over you since I got here. I stared at her, stunned. You knew? I'm not blind, she said, smirking. The way he looks at you. It's like you hung the stars. Question is, how do you feel about him? That was the problem. I didn't know. Or maybe I did, and I was too scared to admit it. I'd spent my life avoiding risks, sticking to what was safe. Julian was the opposite leap into the unknown. And yet, the thought of losing him, of going back to a life without his chaos, felt like a punch to the gut. I spent the day at work, but my focus was shot. My code was a mess, full of bugs I couldn't trace. By the time I got home, Julian was out, probably at his gallery event. The apartment felt empty without him, and that realization hit harder than I expected. I pulled up my laptop and started typing. Not code, but a list pros and cons. Like I could reduce my feelings to a data structure. It was a futile exercise. No amount of logic could untangle the knot in my chest. When Julian came home, I was on the balcony, nursing a beer. He joined me, leaning against the railing, his shoulder brushing mine. You okay? He asked, his voice gentle. No, I said honestly, but I'm trying to be. He nodded, staring out at the city. I don't want to push you, Ethan, but I meant what I said. I'm in this, whatever it is. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the man who'd turned my orderly life into something vibrant, something alive. And for the first time, I let myself wonder what it would be like to stop running, to let the mess in. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely audible. Julian turned, his eyes soft but steady. Me too. But some things are worth being scared for. We stood there, the city buzzing below, and I felt the first crack in my defenses give way. It wasn't an answer. Not yet. But it was a start. The Seattle rain had returned, drumming against the windows like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. I sat at my desk, staring at lines of code that refused to make sense. My mind replaying Julian's words from the balcony. Some things are worth being scared for. He'd left me there, not pushing, just letting the weight of his confession settle. And settle it did, like a stone in my chest, heavy with possibility. I'd always prided myself on solving problems. Bugs in code, glitches in systems. I could trace the error, fix it, move on. But this was a puzzle with no clear solution. Julian wasn't a bug to be fixed. He was a variable I hadn't accounted for, rewriting the rules of my carefully constructed life. Work was a blur that week. My team at the tech startup was prepping for a big release. and I was supposed to be the guy who kept things on track. Instead, I was distracted, my thoughts drifting to Julian's crooked smile, the way his laugh filled the apartment. My coworker, Priya, noticed. "You okay, Ethan?" she asked during a coffee break, her dark eyes narrowing. "You've been staring at your screen like it's written in Klingon." "Just tired," I lied, sipping my latte. But Priya wasn't buying it. She leaned in, her voice low. "If it's guy trouble, I'm a great listener," she said with a grin. I choked on my coffee, and she laughed. "Relax. I'm joking. But seriously, you're not yourself. Fix it before you crash our servers." Her words stuck with me. Fix it. But how do you fix something you don't fully understand? I'd never questioned my sexuality before. I'd dated women, had crushes, followed the script. Julian was rewriting that script, and I wasn't sure I was ready for the new version. Friday night, I came home to find Julian painting in the living room, his easel set up by the window. The canvas was a riot of colors, blues and golds swirling like a stormy sea. He didn't look up as I dropped my bag, but his voice was warm. "Rough day?" "You could say that," I replied, grabbing a beer from the fridge. I hesitated, then sat on the couch, watching him work. His hands moved with purpose, each stroke deliberate yet free. It was mesmerizing, like watching chaos turn into art. "Want to talk about it?" he asked, still focused on the canvas. I took a long sip, gathering my courage. "I'm trying to figure out what this is," I said finally. "What? We are." He paused, paintbrush hovering, then set it down and turned to face me. His expression was open, unguarded. "What do you want us to be, Ethan?" The question hit like a punch. I wanted to say something logical, something that would make sense of the chaos in my head. But all I could manage was, "I don't know, but I don't want to lose you." His face softened, and he crossed the room, sitting beside me. "You're not going to lose me," he said, his voice steady. "But you got to be honest with yourself. What are you feeling?" I looked at him, at the paint smudged on his cheek, the earnestness in his eyes, and something in me broke open. "I feel everything," I admitted. "Scared, confused, but also like I've been waiting for this without knowing it." Julian's smile was small but radiant, like the first light after a storm. "That's a start," he said. He reached out, his hand brushing mine, and I didn't pull away. The touch was electric, grounding me in a way I hadn't expected. We didn't say much after that, just sat there, the rain filling the silence. For the first time in days, my mind felt quiet, like I'd found a piece of the puzzle. But there were still pieces missing, and I knew the hardest part was yet to come. The next day, I called Mia. She was at the hospital, but she made time to meet me at a cafe near her work. Over steaming mugs of chai, I spilled everything: Julian's confession, my confusion, the way my heart seemed to have a mind of its own. She listened, her face a mix of compassion and mischief. "So, let me get this straight," she said, stirring her drink. "You try to set me up with the guy you're falling for. Classic Ethan move." "I'm not," I started, then stopped. Was I falling for him? The thought was terrifying, but it fit, like a key sliding into a lock. "Okay, maybe I am," I admitted. "But what do I do with that? I'm not gay, bi, something else." Mia finished for me, her tone gentle. "You don't need a label right now, Ethan. You just need to be honest with yourself. And with Julian." I nodded, my throat tight. What if I messed this up? She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You will. We all do. But if he's worth it, you'll figure it out together." Her words stayed with me as I walked home through the drizzle. Seattle felt alive, its energy pulsing through the streets, mirroring the shift inside me. I wasn't ready to name what I felt, but I was ready to stop running from it. And that was enough for now. The weekend arrived like a storm I couldn't outrun. Seattle's skies were clear for once, the sun casting a golden glow over the city. But inside my apartment, The air felt charged, electric with unspoken words. Julian and I had been dancing around each other all week. Our conversations careful but heavy with meaning. Every glance, every accidental touch, felt like a step towards something inevitable, or a cliff I wasn't sure I could leap from. Saturday morning, I found Julian in the kitchen, brewing coffee with the same focus he gave his art. He was humming a tune I didn't recognize, his hair still messy from sleep. "Morning," he said, sliding a mug toward me. "You look like you need this." "Thanks," I mumbled, taking it. Our fingers brushed, and I felt that now familiar spark. I wanted to say something, to bridge the gap between us, but my tongue felt tied in knots. Instead, I blurted, "You got plans today?" He grinned, leaning against the counter. "Gallery's showing my stuff tonight. You should come. Bring Mia if you want." The invitation felt like a challenge, a chance to see him in his element. "I'll be there," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Wouldn't miss it." The gallery was in Capitol Hill, a trendy spot packed with art types and hipsters sipping overpriced wine. Julian's murals dominated the space, vivid, swirling colors that seemed to pulse with life. I spotted him across the room, talking to a group of admirers, his charisma lighting up the space. He saw me and waved, his smile cutting through the crowd like a beacon. Mia was there too, her arm linked with mine as we wandered through the exhibit. "He's something else," she whispered, nodding toward Julian. "You see how people look at him? Like he's magic." "Yeah," I said, my eyes on him. He was magic, chaotic, unpredictable, and impossible to look away from. I wondered if I'd been drawn to him from the start, even when I was too stubborn to see it. Julian joined us, his face flushed with excitement. "What do you think?" he asked, gesturing to a mural of a cityscape, its lines blending into a starry sky. Took me weeks to get the colors right. "It's incredible," I said, meaning it. "It's like you captured Seattle's soul." His eyes softened, and for a moment, it was just us, the crowd fading away. "Thanks, Ethan. That means a lot." Mia excused herself to grab a drink, leaving us alone. The air shifted, heavy with possibility. "I'm glad you came," Julian said, his voice low. "I wasn't sure you would." "I told you I'd be here," I said, my heart pounding. "I keep my promises." He stepped closer, his gaze intense. "Do you?" "Because I'm still waiting for you to figure out what you want." The words stung, but they were fair. I'd been stalling, hiding behind logic when what I needed was courage. "I'm trying," I said. "It's just new. All of this." He nodded, his expression softening. "I know, and I'm not going to push you. But I'm here, Ethan, whenever you're ready." The rest of the night was a blur of art and conversation, but Julian's words stayed with me. When we got home, Mia crashed on the couch, leaving me and Julian on the balcony, the city sparkling below. "You did good tonight," I said, breaking the silence. "I'm proud of you." He turned, his smile soft but searching, proud enough to take a chance. My breath caught. This was the moment I'd been avoiding. I could step back, keep things safe, or I could leap. "Julian," I started, my voice shaky. "I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I don't want to lose this. Us." His eyes lit up, and he closed the distance between us, his hand finding mine. "That's all I needed to hear," he whispered. And then, before I could overthink it, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine in a kiss that felt like coming home. It was brief, tentative, but it set my world on fire. When we pulled back, I was trembling, but not from fear. For the first time, I felt free. "Okay," I said, laughing softly. "That was okay." Julian grinned, his thumb tracing circles on my hand. "Just okay. I'll have to do better next time." We stood there, hand in hand, the city humming around us. I didn't have all the answers, but I had this moment, and it was enough. The kiss lingered in my mind like a melody I couldn't shake. It was Sunday morning, and I woke to the soft patter of rain. The memory of Julian's lips on mine replaying in vivid detail. I'd spent my life avoiding risks. But last night, I'd taken the biggest one yet, and it felt right. Julian was already up, sketching at the kitchen table, his hair falling into his eyes. He looked up as I entered, his smile cautious but warm. "Morning," he said, setting his pencil down. "Sleep okay?" "Barely," I admitted, grabbing coffee. "You?" "Same." He hesitated, then added, "Last night, was that okay? I mean, really?" I sat across from him, my heart racing. "More than okay," I said, meeting his gaze. "I'm still figuring this out, but I want to. With you." His face lit up, and he reached for my hand, his touch grounding me. "Good. Because I'm not letting you overthink this one. Caldwell." We laughed, the tension easing, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. But the world doesn't stop for new beginnings. And reality came crashing in soon enough. Work was a nightmare. Our release was delayed due to a bug I should have caught. And my boss wasn't thrilled. "Get your head in the game, Ethan," she snapped during a meeting. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled up in Julian and the life I was starting to imagine. That evening, I told Mia everything. She was packing to head back to her place. But she paused, her eyes wide. "You kissed him," she squealed, pulling me into a hug. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan. This is huge." "It's terrifying," I said, but I was smiling. "What if I screw this up?" "You won't," she said firmly. "Just be you. Julian's crazy about you, and you're clearly crazy about him." Her words gave me courage, but doubts lingered. I'd never been in a relationship like this, never questioned who I was. What if I wasn't enough for Julian? What if this was just a phase, a glitch in my system? Those fears followed me into the week. Julian and I were cautious, testing the waters. We'd hold hands on the couch, steal kisses in the kitchen, but every step felt like a leap. Tuesday night, we went for a walk along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting on the Puget Sound. "You're quiet," Julian said, nudging my shoulder. "What's going on in that big brain of yours?" I sighed, shoving my hands in my pockets. "I'm just scared I'll mess this up. I'm not good at this, Julian. Feelings, relationships, it's not my strong suit." He stopped, turning to face me. "You think I've got it all figured out? I'm terrified too. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." His words hit hard, and I pulled him close, kissing him under the stars. It was bolder this time, more certain, and when we pulled back, I felt a shift. This wasn't just a moment, it was a choice. The rest of the week was a blur of work and stolen moments. Julian's gallery success meant he was busier, but he'd leave sketches on my desk, little doodles of us, of Seattle, of a future I was starting to believe in. But Friday brought a new challenge. My parents were coming to town. They didn't know about Julian, about any of this. My mom was traditional, my dad pragmatic, and I'd always been their predictable son. How do you tell your family you're falling for your male roommate? Mia offered to be there for moral support, but I knew this was something I had to face alone. Julian sensed my nerves. "You don't have to tell them yet," he said, squeezing my hand. "But if you do, I'm here." I nodded, grateful but terrified. As I prepared for their visit, I realized this wasn't just about Julian, it was about me, about owning who I was becoming. And that was the scariest code I'd ever have to write. The day my parents arrived, Seattle was cloaked in a rare autumn sun, the kind that makes the city feel like a painting. I was a mess, pacing the apartment while Julian watched, amused. "You're gonna wear a hole in the floor," he teased, tossing me an apple from the kitchen counter. "They're your parents, Ethan. They love you." "Yeah, but they don't know this me," I said, catching the apple. My parents were good people, but they came from a world of clear expectations: marriage, kids, stability. I'd always followed that path, until Julian. Now, I was rewriting my own code, and I wasn't sure they'd understand. They arrived at noon, their rental car pulling up outside our building. Mom hugged me tight, her floral perfume familiar and grounding. Dad shook my hand, his grip firm, his eyes scanning the apartment like he was auditing it. "Nice place," he said, nodding at Julian's murals on the walls. "Your roommate's got talent." Julian grinned, shaking their hands. "Thanks. Ethan's the real genius. Though, keeps this city running with his code." Mom laughed, charmed, but I saw Dad's eyes narrow slightly, like he sensed something off. We headed to a nearby diner for lunch. The conversation light, Hannah Montana safe and light. I tried to focus on Mom's stories about her book club and Dad's golf game, but my mind was on Julian, on the secret I was carrying. Every time I looked at him, laughing across the table, I felt a surge of courage and fear. Back at the apartment, we sat on the balcony, the city sprawling below. Mom was asking Julian about his art, and he was in his element, describing his process with passion. Dad watched me, his expression unreadable. "You're quiet today, Ethan," he said as we walked back to the car. "Everything okay?" I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. This was the moment I'd been dreading. "Actually," I started, my voice shaky, "there's something I need to tell you." Julian's hand brushed mine under the table, a silent anchor. "I'm seeing someone. It's Julian." The words hung in the air, heavy and fragile. Mom's eyes widened, and Dad's jaw tightened. "Your roommate?" Mom asked, her voice soft but confused. "Yeah," I said, forcing myself to meet their gazes. "I didn't plan this, but he's important to me." Silence stretched, agonizingly long. Then Mom reached for my hand, her eyes glistening. "Ethan, all we've ever wanted is for you to be happy. If Julian makes you happy, that's enough." Dad was quieter, his face a mask of thought. Finally, he nodded. "Takes some getting used to," he said gruffly. "But you're our son. We'll figure it out." Relief washed over me. Mingled with tears, I blinked back. Julian squeezed my hand, his smile a quiet promise. That night, we lay in bed, the city's hum a soft backdrop. "You did it," he whispered, his fingers tracing mine. "You were brave." "I had to be," I said, kissing him softly. "For us." The weeks after telling my parents felt like stepping into a new world. Mom called often, asking about Julian, her warmth easing my fears. Dad was slower to come around, but he started texting me golf tips again, a sign he was trying. Seattle's rainy days felt brighter, each one a chance to build something real with Julian. We fell into a rhythm, mornings coding while he painted, evenings tangled together on the couch, his sketches now featuring us as a pair. Work stabilized, the bug fixed, the release a success. But the real success was us, messy, imperfect, and ours. One night, we stood on the balcony, the Space Needle glowing in the distance. Julian pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. "You know," he said, "I thought I was the brave one. But you rewrote your whole world for this." I laughed, kissing him under the stars. Worth every line of code. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was honest, built on choices we made together. And as Seattle sparkled below, I knew I'd chosen right, not just Julian, but me, the version I was always meant to be.